Welcome to the third in our Governor of Victoria Export Awards 2019 Application Support webinar. I'm Collins Rex, and these webinars are presented on behalf of Global Victoria. Third in the series today, one more to go, and I look forward to the pleasure of your company. As you know by now, 5 different sections in the application form. Last time round, we looked at your international business strategy. Today, we're going to be looking at business management, which includes financial management and data. This question worth 25%. Now, up to this point, you've been talking in broad terms about what you do, about strategy, about marketing, etc. This particular question is where you start getting into the nitty-gritty of what you do, processes, procedures, etc. It is also where you start showing the results of all that strategy, because this is where you're going to be putting in your profit and loss statement. Emphasizing, again, that you need to understand what it is that you do. You need to know what you do well, and you need to convey what you do in a language that the judges will understand. So let's get straight into it. Question number 4, business management. 25% of the weighting, a number of different sections, tables to complete, sections in which you're going to write stuff of varying length. And this question is going to give the judges overall a sense of how you run your business. Bearing in mind, this is an export award, so all questions eventually come down to just how successful you are at this export stuff. Okay, so 4.1 is about your human resources. It's a table. You can see what it looks like there. You are going to be completing a table for the past 3 years, showing how many people you employ and what percentage of those people you employ in Australia. It really is that simple. 2018-19 being the most recent year, and 2016-17 being the most distant year of figures that you will be putting in. Again, if you are a calendar year business, so 31 December is your financial year end, then you are going to be looking at 18, 17, and 16 as your years. Total number of employees, so every single person that you employ in your organization, irrespective of where they are based, and then the percentage of those people based in Australia. The second component of this question, and this is new in this year's application, any specific HR strategies that you have in place to support your international business. 150 words, and the judges here are looking for things like you give your employees that are working on the international business things like cultural sensitivity training, language training, that you have a policy of employing people from a host of different cultural backgrounds, that you have flexible working hours to accommodate customers in different time zones, etc. So what are the specific HR strategies that you have in place to support your international business? Acknowledging that your domestic business and your international business are different and have different requirements. Question 4.2, again, a new question for this year. So if you have entered in previous years, please note that this is not information that you would necessarily have provided in quite this form in the past. This question asks, do you source more than 1/3 of inputs from outside Australia? And if so, comment on the risk strategies that you have in place. So what do we mean by this question? If you are a manufacturing business and you import certain of your components, If you import more than 1/3 of those inputs from outside Australia, you need to specifically explain the risk strategies that you have in place. It could be things like foreign exchange policy, so that you mitigate any change in price fluctuations as a result of fluctuations in foreign currency. It could be that you have alternative suppliers should your current suppliers fall over. It could be that you're currently sourcing from a particular country that is prone to political risk, so you have an alternative source should you run into problems, or you have a way to still get your products out, etc. If you're a services business and you rely on staff that comes from outside, for example, what happens if visa requirements change and you can no longer have those staff members come in? So any input that you bring from outside of Australia that enables you to produce what you do to export, if more than 1/3 of those inputs come from outside Australia, you have to answer this question. 200 words. If, however, you don't have an issue because you do not import more than 1/3 of your inputs, you simply say no and you move on to the next question. Question 4.3 is a table that you are going to complete, and this table is all about your financial results. So first of all, you're going to select the industry that best describes your business. There's a drop-down menu. You're going to choose from that drop-down menu. Now, you're in a certain category, of course, you've entered in agribusiness or you've entered in mineral services, etc., but you are still in a specific industry, so you're going to select that industry from the drop-down menu. The second component of this question asks if your business is an ASX-listed company. It's a yes/no answer, and depending on whether you answer yes or no, you're going to complete one part or another part of the application. So if you answer yes, I am an ASX-listed company, you are then going to provide your most recent audited financial report, and that needs to include the auditor's report on your business. Where the audited report is more than 2 years old, you will have to provide the most recent unaudited report. So for ASX businesses, you're not just going to complete a table. You are going to provide your audited financial report, and that includes your auditor's report. If your answer to that question was no, so you are not ASX listed, you're then going to provide financial reporting data for the past 3 financial years by completing a table. And part of that is identifying your organization's net after-tax profit and your assets and liabilities. So essentially, it's a P&L that you're going to be completing. In previous years, there have been certain glitches in the system that have allowed applicants to lodge their application without these figures. Those applicants are disqualified. The system should not allow you to do that. If for whatever reason it does, please bear in mind that you are not going to win an export award without figures. You have to include your figures, and your figures are treated with the utmost confidentiality. So please, you can put them in with an absolute measure of confidence. Nobody is going to be using these figures for any purpose other than to assess the success of your business and the suitability for you to win an export award. Now, once you've completed your application table or you've provided your audited reports in the case of an ASX listed company, you have a section where you can provide information that explains any unusual financial results, and you're allowed 200 words. Now, unusual financial results are not necessarily negative. They could be positive as well. So let's say, for example, you provide your 3 years of figures. In the first 2 years, you showed an average profit of around $50,000. But in the third year, you're suddenly showing a profit of $1 million. that is an unusual financial result, and you need to explain why that occurred. If, of course, you're showing a loss in a particular year, particularly the most recent year, you need to explain why that occurred. Having that loss does not necessarily mean you will not win an export award unless you have not sufficiently explained it. So why could you be showing a loss? Well, perhaps you've suddenly invested a great deal of money in research and development. You've invested money in employing new staff. You've invested money in opening new offices offshore, etc. But please, if there is an anomaly of any description, positive or negative, you have to explain it in the section that comes after the table or the financial results. Do not just leave it blank, because if you leave it blank, all you're going to do is throw up red flags, and the judges are going to question the veracity of the rest of your application. The next component of the business management question, 4.4, asks you to outline your key investment priorities, both capital and operational, for the next 3 years. This question, again, is a new question for 2019. This question has not been asked in the past. So if you have entered in the past and you are copying and pasting bits of information, please note that you haven't answered this question before. 150 words to outline your key investment priorities. Do not leave this question blank, because you must have investment priorities. Without those, there's a very good chance that the judges will not score you well, because you have not shown that you are thinking about the future of your international business. So what are we looking for here? Things like capital equipment purchases to expand your product line, packaging investments that you're making, investments in new staff, for example. So capital and or operational investments for the next 3 years, what are your priorities? Question 4.5 asks, did your business receive state or federal government grants in the past 3 years? It's a simple yes/no answer. If you answer no, you move right along. If you answer yes, you have to provide details, and there's a table that comes up that you complete. You need to detail what the grant was, what it was for, and how much it was. So things like the Export Market Development Grant, if you received that over the past 3 years, at any point over the past 3 years, you need to include it. If you received an R&D tax concession, for example, over the past 3 years, you need to include it. If you received any other state or federal government grant, you went on a trade mission, you had costs offset by a grant, etc. Please include those. It's very important both for statistical reasons and also to show what sort of support you had. If you didn't have any government grants, that's fine. Answer no, move on. That brings us to the end of question 4. Again, just reiterating those dates, and the important one there is application closing date is Monday, the 15th of July. Make sure that you have left sufficient time to get all your information into the online application, and you have hit the submit button and got the confirmation of the submission well before 5 p.m. on Monday, the 15th of July. Any questions you have about the application process, about the actual form, if something isn't clear or if it's not coming up correctly, any questions you have around the online lodgement process, etc., address them to Darren Vouch at Global Victoria. You see Darren's contact details in front of you there. Darren can also assist you with mentoring time if you need help with your application in the period of time between now and the 15th of July. Please do not leave it to the last minute. If you want help, and you want help on the 14th of July, there's a good chance I'm not going to be available to assist you and you're going to run into difficulties. So please make any decisions as quickly as possible. There is the application address. It's www.global.vic.gov.au/GOVEA. That's where you go to complete your application. You will initially register your interest, and once you've done that, you're part of the process. If you do not complete your application in time, you can expect to get a note from Darren saying, you started this, you haven't completed, do you intend to, do you need assistance, etc. So just be prepared for that one. And that brings us to the end of today's webinar. Thank you very much for your attention. One more to go, and we will have worked our way through the entire application process. I look forward to the pleasure of your company then.